so much for being here today. Peyton, thank you so much for being here as well. We're here to talk, as everyone said, about cyberflashing, which involves the sending of lewd, unwanted, unsolicited photos to folks in a digital format. So that could be on AirDrop, it could be over text, it could be on a dating app. And here we have with us Payton Iheme, who is the head of public policy at Bumble. And we're really interested in talking about how Bumble has just really led the charge in legislating cyberflashing. So far, cyberflashing, it has been criminalized in 3 states, Texas, Virginia, and now California. Only 10 days ago, Governor Newsom signed a bill to criminalize cyberflashing. So we're here to talk a little bit about that with Peyton. And so Peyton, I think just before we get started, it would be great to hear a little bit about you and your fascinating career. Can you share a little bit about that?
I can share a little bit. I think I'd just first call out the elephant in the room is if anybody knows anything about me, the last place they would think of me working is a dating app. I'm a classically trained intelligence officer, so I spent most of my time in the Department of Defense abroad, and I also have multiple combat tours as well as an Army Intelligence Special Operations Officer. After that time, I spent quite a bit of time. I went to Congress. I was really interested to understand how we got in Iraq and who was making those decisions and how they were made. So I transferred to Congress to work there and ended up working with the Obama White House. So I have most of my career has been spent in the national security spaces and the defense spaces. And then I took that over and spent some time trying to understand technology, because at the time technology was really shaping a lot of these decisions that were happening globally. So I spent about 5.5 years at Facebook, from the easy days all the way till things were getting a little bit more heated. And then kind of got the call to come and help at Bumble. So not your normal flow of events, but here I am.
Amazing. And so tell us a little bit more about your cyberflashing initiative. How did it come about?
Absolutely. I'm just start with 2 things, just brass tacks. I think cyberflashing falls into 2 lanes. First, some people are like, I don't even know what that is. Nobody sends me anything. And then there's the other cohort of people who are like, yeah, I've gotten these before. My friends have gotten these before. So I just want to call out, there's like 2 groups that exist in the world, and each one can't believe the other one exists. And so how our work began is being a dating app. Around 2018, we're constantly just polling our users just to understand, where do you like to eat? What's top of mind? What's the dating culture? And one of the things that started coming back was, hey, we always get these really lewd, intimate images sent to us. And we were saying, of course, that might happen, and you should follow through and report it to law enforcement. And then that's when we found out that there actually is no mechanism to report that type of harassment online. Every state in the United States, even globally, there's a law on the books that prohibits you physically flashing someone in real life. But digitally, our laws have never caught up. And so there's nothing ever that's been on the books for people to be prevented from doing that. And that's what we found out. So we started in our home state, which is Texas. And in 2019, we worked with policymakers and passed the first law, which would prevent it. Texas is Texas, so that law it's criminal. So you could face extreme fines, and it's a misdemeanor. So that's how the work initially got started. It's like just from real people who were complaining about it.
Absolutely. And so tell us a little bit more about the mental health and well-being impacts of cyberflashing.
I'd like to start first is saying that it's a very personal issue for some. There's some groups, like I mentioned, who don't even know this is happening. There's other groups who it happens, they laugh it off, over cocktails or with friends. And then there might be another cohort and more, which you don't actually know what their journey is. You don't know that if they've had past trauma, if they've had past sexual assaults, et cetera. And so it can be a really scary place mentally. I also like to bring in the fact that some of us are on the internet a lot and some of us are on it a little. And then if you happen to be one of these type of people who, for whatever reason, they're targeting with this, you might have, your consumption level might be quite high for this kind of harassment. And that's just something like you have to keep in mind. Another thing I like to bring out too is when you're in a metropolitan place, whether the bus, airplane, you probably saw that with Southwest Airlines, that went national with them sending those pictures around, and there was children on that flight as well. You could be on a metro, a train system as well. You are amongst whoever sent that to you, and then you've got to get off of the plane or the bus or the train with whoever might have sent that to you. You don't know who it is, and walk home. Just imagine what that feels like, how scary that could be. And that's just something that you just don't really think about unless you're the person who's victimized by it. So we are just a voice for the people who this happens to. It tends to be women, but it's not only women. It happens to men, and it happens to youth as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those impacts, they're so extreme. And so I'm so glad to hear that this is being legislated. So with that legislation, are you going state by state, or is it more of a national approach?
Right now, we're going where the demand is, and a lot of this groundswell is coming up from just women, advocates, men who are allies, and so we're going where that is, and right now it's a state-by-state approach. We'll sometimes get calls from advocacy orgs. We work with National Organization of Women. We work with the National Women's Political Caucus, which is Gloria Steinem and Charlie Sijam's old group. We work with a lot of advocates, RAIN, to work on this, but right now we're doing state-by-state approach. Until there's enough consensus at a national level to do something. And we also work globally as well. We're doing this work in the UK and abroad.
Absolutely. And so what's next? Do you think you have states or cities in mind to target next?
Well, we're just celebrating, as you mentioned, a big win. So this year has been really pivotal for this work. In April, we had a bill go through the legislature, and it passed in June in Virginia. That was a state where they said this would never work, this would never happen. It was all female policymakers, state senators, assembly members, and a really diverse group. And then, just like you said, 10 days ago, we had California. Right now, the call, as we talk about the call to do more, we're hearing a lot from people in New York. DC and Maryland, we're hearing a lot more, but we'll go anywhere and we'll work with anyone if they want to pass a bill like this.
That's amazing, absolutely. And so your career has been so incredible. Like you said, you've worked in the White House, in the Senate, in the Pentagon, and now in the tech sector at Facebook and Bumble. And I'm curious, based on those experiences, if you could share a little bit about the role you believe tech plays in safety and consent online.
My personal opinion is that tech's role should be to support the masses and the population. I don't believe that tech should be on its own, dictating what the world should look like. I think it should be a representation of what we as the people want. And so because of that, I believe if there's demand signals where there's opportunity and tech can help, I believe tech can go there and help. But I also believe the alternative, if there are signals that something is hurting or harming, that tech should do work to mitigate that behavior.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what role can tech companies play in making the internet a safer place for everyone?
Well, I think the first thing is starting with your users. If you're hearing complaints, if you're hearing concerns from users, I think it's ground zero to start right there. Because if you can't fix it on your own platform for your own users, it's harder to fix things out in the community. So I think that that's their first goal. And then I also have this do no harm, and I've always had that, especially given my background. I think that tech companies should look at their product and make sure it's doing no harm. How can they improve it and continue to innovate on it? As always, I really feel like it's a symbiotic relationship, the users, the community, and tech, of just how can we be better, all of us, all together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so how can we all have healthier relationships online? Online is kind of a wild place. So how do we do that, and what role does consent play in that?
Consent is the key. It's the foundation. It doesn't matter if it's a friend type relationship, a work relationship, or if it's an intimate relationship. I think this sense of consent, is important. theirs that do unto others as you'd want them to do unto you. I don't think that plays well here because maybe what you can tolerate and what you want is not what other people want. I see laughing there. So mine is really at the consent basis, right? Ask somebody if they're okay, whether it's the language you're using, whether you want to talk about politics, and for goodness sakes, especially if you want to send an intimate image of yourself, ask them. We're in the dating business, so we're no prudes here. You know, if consenting adults want to exchange images, that's not the concern here, but it's the sharing, especially mass sharing of things that could cause harm. That's where we want to mitigate that behavior.
Makes sense, absolutely. And so how can people here, in this tent get involved, especially if they don't have cyberflashing legislation? I don't know if you guys are from Texas, Virginia, or California, but I feel like a lot of people would probably want to know next steps.
Absolutely. Well, we all know from our elementary civics class, there's 50 states. So we can do the math and know that we've got a lot more room to go. So if you don't have one of these laws in your state, and you know which ones do now, California, Texas, Virginia, all you need to do is write to your state senator or to your assembly member, whatever jurisdiction you are. Tip is they only really care to hear from people who are actually from their jurisdiction. So that'll help you when you're writing them. And ask them. You can point to, you can Google Bumble, you can Google the cyberflashing, and there's lots of examples. And also on Bumble.com, we have a model bill, actually, which you can share with your assembly members. Most don't know that there's something you can do about it, and they don't know it's an issue unless they hear from people, just like we didn't know that until we start hearing it from people. So I want you to take the first move, make the first move, as we say at Bumble, and probably do that connection.
No, those are really good ideas, absolutely. And so do you have anything else that you'd like to share for the folks in the room?
I wanted to say for us, the company, our founder, Whitney Wolf Hurd, we built the company foundationally as a place that was going to be safe and equitable for healthy relationships. And it was built out of some bad experiences that the founder had seen and had experienced on the internet. So because of that, this is not temporary work for us. It's foundational work for us and the policy team. We will always be working in this space. And as part of that, some of us are getting older, that would be me. And we want to build the work for the next generation. And so for the first time, we're going to also create, just announcing today, a public policy fellowship program at Bumble. And what that will do is we'll bring a young person into the company. They'll get to work directly with the policy team, work alongside myself for the time of their fellowship, and hopefully take anything that they learn from us, and of course their own advocacy, which they've probably been doing themselves, take it back to the community. And it's just a way to pay it forward and make sure that this work just continues for everyone, not just us who have access and who are a little bit older, but I'm really worried about college students as well that are coming up.
That's amazing. I want to sign up. That's amazing. So, well, thank you so much, Peyton. All this is so interesting, and thank you guys all for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.